Welcome to my world, where you will experience an atmosphere of love, relevant subjects, and motivation. So let's talk about things that matter. What matters to you matters to me. Hello, my friends. This is Henry Harris. Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. This is 2020, and I want to start out the new year by wishing you a happy new year. I hope that this will be the best year that you've ever had. Maybe 2019 you had a rough year. I know I did. But maybe going into 2020 you'll have a better year, a productive year, a fruitful year, and I want to wish that for you today. Today I want to give a disclaimer. For the next 3 weeks I will be talking about a subject that is rather sensitive. What I'm going to discuss may trigger certain emotions. It may bring back memories of things that you've tragically had to experience. So I want to warn all our viewers today that before you engage or watch these episodes, that you may want to make sure that you're ready to watch it. You may want to make sure that you are mentally ready and emotionally ready, because what we're going to talk about today is PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. This is a very popular subject. It's a subject that we rarely ever hear about. So for the next several weeks, I want to kind of raise some awareness on PTSD, and we're going to talk about it from different aspects, different levels. And I want you to get some help if you are struggling with PTSD. I have talked to so many people that have said, Henry, I have that disorder. Oftentimes, many people take it lightly that a person struggles with that, but PTSD is a real disorder, and it is something that several people, perhaps millions of people, deal with. So today, we're just going to kind of lay out a little foundational message, and I want to just talk about what is PTSD. PTSD is a word we often hear only as it relates to military veterans. How many times have we heard that? I can recall taking care of a young man who had PTSD. He went to the Army, and it caused him to have horrible nightmares and flashbacks and whatever that is associated with PTSD. I heard about it because he told me about it. And he was a veteran. He served in the Army and retired. So I said that to say, many times when we hear the word PTSD, we always limit it to veterans or people who serve in combat or war. But I want to let you know that it is broader than that. That those who serve in the war or combat, they are not the only ones who suffer with PTSD. It has been said that there are more than 3 million U.S. cases a year. Think about that. Of people who have been diagnosed with PTSD. 3 million cases a year. How many people avoid this disorder, or perhaps they didn't even know that they had it? But they know that something is way off within themselves. How many people today may have PTSD, and you're probably showing the symptoms, you're probably showing the signs that you have it, but you don't know how to identify it. You don't know how to label it. You don't know what name to attach to it. You know something is way off within yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally. You know something is wrong. But sometimes we are afraid to go get diagnosed. We are afraid to go get treatment. And I want to tell you today that there's nothing wrong with going to go get an evaluation, to go get treatment. I believe it's human nature to avoid what's painful, especially those who are experiencing pain. Sometimes the most common symptoms are the most difficult ones to recognize. So in today's episode, I want to address this pain that millions of people are suffering with. Today I want to address this pain that millions of people are dealing with. I want to raise an awareness about PTSD, but not only that, I want to help you understand the causes, the signs, and the ways that you can seek professional treatment to those who may be diagnosed with PTSD. You may feel like that there's not help for you, but I want you to know that there is help for you. There are many people out there that are willing to help you who may have PTSD. Several treatments at hand to our disposal if we will utilize that. So here's a quote that I really like. Trauma is personal. It does not disappear if it is not validated. When it is ignored or invalidated, the silent streams continue internally, heard only by the one held captive. When someone enters the pain and hears the streams, their hearing begins. Did you like that? I really love that quote. Are you that person today that got those silent streams going on internally within you, and you are held captive by PTSD? You feel like nobody cares. You feel like no one understands. I want you to know that I care. I do understand. And if I don't fully understand about PTSD, I want to. And that's why we're talking about this. I love that quote. Do you find yourself feeling tormented on the inside based on past traumatic experiences? Many people do. I believe you feel that way at times. Do you feel like something is not right with you? We can't ignore this. We can't shove it under the rug. We can't pretend like it doesn't exist. However, we should do something about that. What is PTSD? PTSD, also known for post-traumatic stress disorder, which is caused by the involvement in or the exposure to a traumatic, emotionally disturbing or distressing event that took place in your life. Now, I want to also make mention of this. Just because a person experiences a emotional, disturbing, distressing, or traumatic experience in their life doesn't necessarily mean that they have PTSD. I may experience a traumatic experience in my life. That doesn't mean I have PTSD. It just means I experienced a traumatic experience in my life. Whereas there may be somebody else that may have experienced that and may end up with a diagnosis of PTSD. People who have PTSD, it leaves their brain in survivor mode. Whereas a normal brain doesn't operate that way. I've actually encountered this and I've seen this firsthand in my own life with people that are close to me. They are in survivor mode. Their brain is in survivor mode. They're always living on the edge of their seats. What could happen next? Or they live in a what if mentality. PTSD comes either two ways. PTSD comes either by witnessing it or experiencing it. PTSD leaves you in a high anticipation mode. In other words, people who suffer from PTSD, they are always on high alert based on their past traumatic experiences. PTSD is an anxiety disorder that involves the overactivation of the fight or flight response. So it is also important to know that everyone who experiences trauma doesn't mean that they develop PTSD. And also everyone doesn't respond the same way. Let's just give an example. Let's say John had a dog that he raised from childhood. And one day his dog gets ran over by a car. Well, Susan has that same experience. She has a dog that she raised from childhood. And her dog gets ran over by a car too. Now, based on that experience with John, John may develop PTSD based on that traumatic or distressing experience that he experienced by his dog dying or being killed. Whereas Susan may have just had an experience, but it doesn't lead to PTSD. How many know what I'm saying? Every person does not respond the same way. So let's talk about some symptoms or some signs of PTSD. The main symptoms of PTSD, I believe, are psychological ones. Some trauma may be re-experienced through, number one, nightmares, flashbacks, feeling constantly on the edge, avoiding places that remind you of the trauma, mistrust. I definitely know that one to be true. I know a young lady right now, actually, who suffers from PTSD. She says she has a hard time trusting people. She'll tell you in a heartbeat, I don't trust anyone. I believe her. I believe her. And I believe her experience. There's a mistrust that takes place. There's a thing that takes place where you're constantly living on the edge. There are some behavior symptoms too. So not only are there psychological symptoms, there are also some behavior symptoms too. Agitation, irritability, self-destructive behavior, people who harm themselves, social isolation. They don't want to be a part of social activities or socializing with anyone or even being around anyone. Sleep disturbances, they have issues sleeping. Anger, and also feeling abandoned. PTSD is not limited to just adults. Children can also experience PTSD. Did you know that? So not only can big people experience PTSD, but also little people can experience PTSD as well. What are some of the causes of PTSD? Let's first discuss the interpersonal ones, such as rape, are more likely to result in PTSD than an accident or some natural disaster, such as a tornado or earthquake or some volcano explosion. You are most likely to experience PTSD from rape or something in that nature than you would in something else, such as a disaster. It is really difficult for children because oftentimes they don't know how to react or respond to the feelings that they are having. They don't know how to respond, even emotionally, to the things that they are experiencing, and they don't know who to talk to. Let's talk about some causes not getting help or support after the event. I can imagine that's one of the most worst feelings ever. To know that you have PTSD, or maybe you have an inkling that you have it, but just haven't been diagnosed, and you are afraid and don't know who to talk to. You feel like you have no friends, no family, no support system to talk about how you feel and the PTSD that you could potentially have. I want you to know that there is always somebody you can talk to. There's always somebody that cares. Number 2, depression. Number 3, intentional human-afflicted harm, such as rape, sexual abuse. D, a history of substance abuse. These are some causes of PTSD. Domestic abuse, childbirth experiences like losing a baby. A lot of these things can create or cause PTSD. These are some of the major ones, but they're not limited to this. So after all these signs and causes and symptoms just cannot be ignored. You cannot go another day knowing that something within my mind, my brain, is not right. The way I react to certain situations, avoiding certain places, something is wrong. You have to ask yourself, what happened to me? What can I do to get better? How can I seek treatment? How can I be healed from that which is tormenting me on the inside? You remember that quote we talked about earlier? Those silent streams? And oftentimes, people will never hear them unless you talk about them. Oftentimes, people are ashamed to talk about PTSD. And I am really, really honored that people will come to me with their stories. Many of you have done that, whether by means of Facebook or in person. Henry, I suffer with that. To even say that makes you such a brilliant person, a courageous person, because oftentimes people who struggle with that, there's a sense of embarrassment. They don't want people to know that they struggle with that. But let me tell you something. As we said earlier, there are over 3 million cases that are proven each year of people who've been diagnosed with PTSD. So with that being said, you're not the only one that suffers from it. Ask yourself this question. If you find yourself experiencing these things, how long has it been occurring? How long has it been happening in your life? And what can you do to get help? With there being more than over 3 million cases per year, we ask, is there any way you can overcome PTSD? The only way you can overcome is by, first of all, doing 2 things. Number 1, first identifying that there is an issue with me. There is a problem. I just said this earlier. I know that there's something just psychologically that's just not right with me. And number 2, seek professional treatment. There may be some of you, and I'm not saying this to sound discouraging, that may never fully overcome PTSD. I know a lot of people who actually live with it, and they take medication and certain treatments, which I've been told, I don't know if it's fully true or not, but I've been told you have to be careful what medications you take, because sometimes some medications that you take can make you worse than before you took the medication. So use your own judgment and discernment. From those you get treatment from, ask questions. What medication am I taking? What side effects will this cause? Because you need to know what to expect. There are treatments and therapy that can help you. Never feel like that you are helpless or hopeless. There is always hope. I have a friend named Candace from Florida. She suffers from PTSD. She has a very inspiring story. Take a listen to her story And I will see you next week as we go into part 2 of our series, PTSD.
Hi there, my name is Candace. I just wanted to share a little bit about PTSD. Some people know what it is. You may have heard of it. You may know somebody that has it. I have what's called complex PTSD, and that is a more severe form of PTSD where you suffer from anxiety and traumas and flashbacks from multiple different things that have happened to you. So today I wanted to share a little bit of the things that I do to cope with PTSD. I have some notes that I'm going to go off of because whenever I'm talking about something that's stressful or I'm dealing with something stressful, because of PTSD, it makes it difficult for me to talk. So I have notes. I suffer from flashbacks, nightmares, and anxiety daily, and I don't know what's going to trigger me. With PTSD, you have things that are called triggers, and sometimes you can be aware of those triggers and avoid them, and sometimes you are not so easily able to avoid them because they're outside of your control, such as maybe a loud noise, and that happens to be something that kind of scares me. So to cope with the things that bother me with PTSD, I do different things like hug on my dog. I love my dog. My dog makes me feel comfortable and safe, and it's just something that I like to do throughout the day, just kind of give my dog a hug. My family is very helpful. My family, especially my husband, he's very in tune with my body language, how I'm breathing. He can tell if I'm getting tense, and so he will oftentimes just give me a hug, and that is so helpful. And so if you know someone who has PTSD, keep that in mind, that even a simple hug is very, very powerful, and just wrapping your arms around that person and letting them know that you care. You don't even have to really say anything, just give them a hug. That's very, very helpful. I've tried a lot of medications over the years. I was diagnosed with PTSD when I was 12 years old, and I am 35 now, and I have been through a lot of traumatic things throughout my life, and so as a result of that, I went to counseling and I tried different types of medications. Medications can be helpful. If you're on medication, I don't discourage anybody from taking it. I think that it's important to know and be aware of your body and find out what works for you. I tried different types of medication for anxiety in the past, and they weren't helpful to me. And some of those medications they give you like a bunch of side effects, and they're worse. You're worse off if you continue to use them. I have a prescription for medical marijuana, and that tremendously helps my anxiety and helps me to calm down and helps me to sleep and relax, because people who have PTSD, it's extremely difficult to relax. And I know that might sound silly to someone who doesn't have it, but you're in a constant state of hyper-awareness. And so that would be like someone telling you there's someone in this room with a gun, you don't know who it is, but they're going to shoot you when you're not looking, and then ask that person to fall asleep. It's not going to happen. You're going to be super on high alert, and so that helps me a lot. Prayer and my relationship with God is very, very helpful. It's vital for me to communicate with God on a daily basis and just pray and let him know how I'm feeling, because it gives me a way to kind of release how I'm feeling, and that is very important. Also, resting and being aware of my body is super important. I can tell when I'm getting tense throughout the day because I do like a body check, and I'll check and see if my stomach is feeling tense, if my fists maybe are balling up, or I can feel my teeth clenching. Those are all signs that I'm getting tense, and I need to be aware of my body and slow myself down. And so that's really important for me to cope with PTSD, to constantly check and be aware of my body, because I can get set off very quickly and easily. I have a lot of cognitive dysfunction because of PTSD, and for that reason, I have to do like a lot of note taking and things like that to help to process my thoughts. Some days when it's really bad, I can't even really formulate a sentence or talk clearly, which is very frustrating. And part of coping with it is being kind to myself and reminding myself that I've been through a lot and that it's okay if I didn't get finished something that I wanted to get done, and I just have to be patient, really patient with myself. Counseling has been very helpful, and then also identifying my triggers and just making sure that I try to stay away from those things, and if not, that's what my relationship with God is for, and He helps me to get past those moments where I'm freaking out. And I think the biggest helpful tip for that is that when you feel like you're in the middle of one of those episodes, what I do is I remind myself that it's temporary, it's a feeling, and that I'm not in danger and I'm not going to die. I just feel that way. So I just tell myself, Candace, you're okay, you're safe, you're just feeling scared right now, and this is a temporary feeling and it'll go away. And that's very helpful for me. So I hope this video has helped you. Thank you so much, Henry, for allowing me the opportunity to share. You guys have a great day.
Hi, if you like what you're seeing today, be sure to connect with Brother Henry at www.facebook.com/The Brother Henry and You Show. And also be sure to check out and subscribe to his YouTube channel, which is www.youtube.com/Henry Harris 100. We hope that this has been a blessing to you, and we hope to hear from you soon. Keep watching, because what matters to you matters to Brother Henry.